We lost our son Walker to sextortion, which is he went into my safe and got a handgun and took his own life.
So it kind of looks like we got just a whole program of saws going on here. We got them all out. I'm out here in the western part of Lowndes County, and I'm going to introduce y'all to somebody right here. This screen will black out in a minute, but the camera will still be going and everything. I'm out here with a gentleman named Brian Montgomery, and he's going to share a story with us. I got out here because he owns some property out here, and he does got a lot of trees blow down, things like that. You know, not knowing what he wanted to buy, I come out here where he could run some of my saws, kind of play with them, where he could test drive them and figure out what he wanted to buy. But he has a story that he's going to share. This story is very important. I encourage everybody. A lot of times people don't like to listen to talking videos, but I encourage anybody to listen to this story and listen to it all the way through, because this could happen to anybody. And the way that this unfolded,
you know, when this happened 2.5 years ago, you know, almost 3. So
this would have been in
22. So December the 1st of 22. And so our family, we live out here, like we said, in western Lowndes County, and we live on a farm. And my wife and I, married for 26 years now. I mean, just have a very normal family. You know, I mean, just love the outdoors, love farming, love everything about it. Our kids, 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. Our oldest daughter is named Caroline, and then Walker was 16, and then Bennett now is 15 at the time of this event.
How old is Caroline now?
Caroline is now about to turn 21.
Okay.
You know, she had just started college, first semester in college whenever this happened, and
y'all were living here when all this went down.
Right here. Some of these logs we're sitting on was logs that Walker helped us cut. They've been sitting here for that long. So, to kind of preface the story, we lost our son Walker to sextortion, which is we'll talk about what that is, but it's a scheme where somebody gets an explicit photo or video of somebody else, and they extort them to prevent them. You know, they want money to keep them from sending it to people that they care about.
He said lost his son by way of suicide.
Yep, he committed suicide. From the time Walker was first contacted around midnight of December the 1st to when he took his own life was less than 4 or 5 hours.
Wow.
So it wasn't something that occurred over a long period of time. But, you know, we raised our kids in church, in private school.
We're right here at the end of the runway of the airport over here, yep. So we're at.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, we spent our time on the weekends working on this place and just building a family. You know,
he was your tag along. You done everything right. I mean, you had him out and about in the woods.
Our whole family,
hunting.
Bow hunted every week. You know, all the time together. He killed a turkey with his bow that spring. He'd killed an antelope with his bow. We're just, what we thought, just regular ordinary people, and thought we were doing everything right. But there's a lot that we didn't know, and that's why we do what we do now, is because we want other people to know. But so I've made my living in agriculture, and he loved farming. He loved being on the farm, and so we did that. That's what we did all the time. He loved football, developed just a crazy love for the sport of football, and was doing great at it. But the night of would have been the morning of December the 1st, around midnight, Walker was contacted by somebody through Instagram, and they come across as what looked like a teenage girl, and the message was real just what you would think is normal, just, hey, what's up? It wasn't anything explicit at all. It was just and Walker answered them, just started talking back and forth. Hey, nothing much. Started talking about football, started talking about things he was interested in. They had looked at his profile on Instagram and kind of done a little bit of research and had enough conversation around where they could gain his confidence, and even to the point of saying, hey, we're friends with some other people that you're friends with on Instagram, and call those people by name.
They were just being really friendly with him, trying to befriend him and kind of get kind of next to him or whatever.
That's right, trying to get his confidence. And of course, he's a 16-year-old boy, and this is midnight. That leads to them asking Walker to have a sexual encounter through the video portal of Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll leave that to what it sounds like. It's exactly what you could imagine. And
so the first contact came on that night then and everything.
And within 20, 30 minutes of that night, they said, hey, you want to mess around on Instagram, through the FaceTime type scenario.
Right.
So Walker thinks he's looking at a pretty, teenage girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so he agrees. And what Walker didn't know that he was being videoed from the other side of that phone. So this person had a secondary device videoing the screen of him in a sexual situation. And as soon as it was over, they immediately came back to Walker and said, look, we've got this video. Sent him the video. Said, we're going to publish this to everybody that you know, everybody that you care about, everybody that you love. We're going to send it. Your life's over if you don't pay us $1,000. And at that point, I always, when I'm talking to people, I always want people to think about their own life,
Sure.
and how many circumstances we've been in as people, whether you're a kid or whether you're an adult, that have been in that situation, that if I published it, that scenario you thought was private, for everybody to see, what kind of reaction would that cause, and
it's 16, a middle teenager like that. Holy cow! You just think back. As far as like any of us, we came up before the internet and social media, and that's part of why I want to get this out there, is because the whole world revolves around social media now, and it's so impactful. And it's 16, he just thought his world was gone.
That's right. And they're really good. We can't forget. The end of the story was it wasn't a young girl. They had stolen that. We believe they had stolen that content and were faking him with that. They're really good at it. This was a man from Nigeria. That's who this was. And they do this for a living, and they're professionals at it. So they're professionals at creating as much pressure to get paid as quickly as they can. And so that's what the conversation turned to, just this brutal conversation of language, the worst that you can really imagine, between Walker and this person. And basically, they're trying to convince Walker that truly his life is over, and that nobody's going to love him, everybody's going to disown him, and everybody's done with him. And Walker, in this conversation, you can read the messages back and forth. Walker's telling him, "Look, this is against the law. You can't do this. This is not right. Stop." He's putting up a fight, through words, and you could just hear the desperation in his reactions. And went on for a while. This conversation lasted about 2 hours. And
so when they done it, they immediately came back to him with the threats.
And that's the current model. So the current model is not, historically we think about sextortion around, this grooming and trying to get young girls or something to send pictures. But the bad guys figured out that they have a tool in social media, and they have victims in young teenage boys that are willing to do what a girl is usually not willing to do, but they're just as vulnerable to the pressure. And so the idea that we can, you got to think about, I always think about the idea of us as mankind, what we're adapting to social media. We're adapting to technology. But it's a slow go, right? It wasn't that long ago that you could, if somebody caught you in a compromising situation, you could just deny it, and it'd be your word against theirs, right? You could say, no, that's not what happened,
right?
And the other person would say, yeah, it was what happened. It's not that long ago we had cameras that were everywhere. Well, now with a click of a button, that information can go literally around the world.
Correct.
And millions can see it. And so they are using that pressure, and so they go from one to the next. And the sad thing is, if Walker would have just stopped communicating, blocked them, walked away, it's about a 98% chance that I never sent the information out, because they never did send it to anybody. It's not in the business model, right? They're not in it some of them are. There are people that are just trying to hurt somebody else.
Sure.
But the vast majority of them are in it to make $1. And so, whenever they just realize they're not going to get paid, and they realize that the guy, whoever is not going to fall for it, and they block them and stop communicating, typically they just go to the next person, the next victim. Walker didn't know that, and which is why I do what I do, because I want kids and adults to realize how vulnerable we can be. And I know that Walker, if he'd have known, if he'd have heard this conversation, he'd have recognized it for what it was, which is just a scam.
Right. Because it not only is it somebody young like that, but they prey on all ages of people.
Sure they do.
You know, because I've heard stories of, you know, people, you know, mine and your age or even older than that get caught up in it, you know. And,
well, that's what I was going to say a while ago is, you know, we talk about, you know, when Walker was 16 and, you know, but I think about, you know, if I was caught in that situation and you say, well, Brian, you'd never do that. Well, I'm not going to say I would never do that. If I go back and think about the worst things that I've done that nobody knows or has seen, if all of my customers saw that, what would they think?
Right.
You know, it would if I had the threat of that being released to my wife, my parents, my preacher, even as an adult, that would cause a reaction that I don't think would go as far as where Walker went, but it would. But I'm a grown man that has matured in my ability to recognize that it looks like it's the end, but it's not. Walker couldn't see that, and so what eventually happened is they started showing Walker screenshots on Instagram of them sending the video to people in his friends list. It was just a screenshot. They weren't really sending it; they were just trying to ramp the pressure up on Walker. And they eventually got to Walker's mom, and Walker told him, he said, "I'm going to kill myself." And the person said, "Go ahead, because you're already dead anyway." Now, it's just the people we're dealing with. They're pure evil. I mean, they're pure evil. He could have easily said, "Don't do that. You know, just relax. We'll get the money tomorrow." But that's not. I mean, this particular situation resulted in this person knowing they had Walker where he was, and showed no mercy whatsoever.
And no care whatsoever for mankind at all.
None. And they're separated by an ocean. They're dealing with a pretty rough life already for the most part. Most of them are trying to figure out how to make $1. Their culture is okay with that, and it's the reality around somebody all the way across the world, and you know, Columbus, Mississippi, Starkville, Mississippi, killing themselves is, so what? You know, that's their mentality. And so the person stopped communicating with Walker, and he went into my safe and got a handgun and took his own life. And you know, since that, obviously, you know, we had no idea what could have happened, because that night before was, it felt normal. Everything was normal. And, you know, I go back and I look, and now that what we know is it was normal. None of this had happened. You know, because you wake up the next day and your whole life has changed, and you're trying to piece things together. How did this happen? There's no way this happened. We're too close of a family. We know who Walker is. You know, there's no way that there was something that he was involved with that we wouldn't have known, that we wouldn't have seen.
Sure.
I mean, you would have recognized the night before if there would have been something that heavy on Walker. And so what we did learn is that it wasn't. Everything was normal the night before. Things became abnormal at midnight. And what I want parents to understand is, you know, Walker would have been the last kid that you would have identified that would have had the potential to commit suicide. I'm not saying that because he's my son. I'm not saying that because I think we're great parents. I'm telling you, Walker would have been at the end of that line. Walker was the son every man wants, and that's truth. And for us to be in this situation, I'm not saying it to brag on the job we did or who Walker was. I'm saying that to make people understand that it can happen to anybody. Anybody. And so, man, we've got to set our threat level at a higher level with technology than we used to. If we would have known this as a family, we would have put safeguards in place. And people ask me all the time, what would you have done? You know, what could you do about it? I mean, number one, Walker had no business with his phone that night. He had no business with it. It should have been in my room. There's no reason for our kids to go to bed with these phones. They're not getting any sleep. They're on them all night. They're in and out of conversations. And guess what? That's when bad things happen in private places. And so we've got to start a process of educating these kids and helping them. I mean, we wouldn't just never let them drive and pitch them the car keys and put them out on a 6-lane highway.
Sure.
We wouldn't do that.
And the cell phones now, I mean, for the last bunch of years, you could touch any corner of this planet from right here in our pockets or on our hips. And I mean, there's kids have them, you know, young, very young, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they've got access to everything in the world right there in their pocket. I mean, there is no doubt that if the internet and the social media would have been around when I was at 13 or 14 years old, there is no telling what I would have gotten into. I am so thankful that when I graduated, because I'm fixing to be 53, you know, the computer era was just beginning to come on kind of in the schools. To anybody watching this, you can say, well, what can I do? One of the things would be to explain to anybody that, hey, no matter what happens, there's nothing that you can't come back from, you know, whatever, what anybody's threatening you with, you know.
Well, I think that's, you know, you can imagine the amount of thought I put into, you know, what was in Walker's mind that night. You know, some of it I don't want to think about, but I do. And
I can't imagine what y'all have went through. I mean,
but I think that Walker, this is where I've landed, is that Walker was a smart kid, and he recognized, because I don't believe that Walker thought that we were not going to love him anymore.
Right.
I just don't believe that. What I believe is Walker recognized that there was no solution. If that person sent those videos, there was no solution to that at the time, and he was right.
Mm-hmm.
If that person, that man from Nigeria, would have sent those videos out to everybody that he said he was going to send them out to, and Walker thought he had, Walker knew that there was nothing that we could do about it. He was going to have to face that the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. He was right about that. If they would have sent it, there's nothing we could have done about it, other than what we could have done about it, and what we would have done about it. We would have moved to a whole new state if we needed to.
Whatever you had to do.
Whatever you had to do.
Yeah.
Whatever you had to do. And I can tell just to the kids out there, if you've got somebody in your life that loves you, they feel the exact same way. You know, because I've thought about it a lot. I mean, a lot of times people will say, well, you know, I just want to make sure we tell our kids that we love them and there's nothing they can do that we can't fix. And,
correct.
You know, we don't, love is not demonstrated by what I say, it's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can say it. There's a lot of people you've told I love you that you probably don't do a good job of demonstrating it.
Mm-hmm.
But we know who loves us by how they treat us. And that's why I know that Walker didn't think that we were not going to love him. He knew we loved him because of how we treated him, the kind of life we lived. What Walker couldn't get his head around, I believe, is waking up the next day and having to face this. And the reality is he wouldn't have had to face it. It didn't go anywhere. It was a scam.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're here left. You know, it's changed everybody's life. And you know, there's a lot of emotions tied to that. A lot of different emotions.
I mean, everybody. I mean, not just, you know, you're right here in this foundation right here, but grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends.
Right.
The trickle, and I remember the way that I knew about this was through Slade. Brian's real big into bow hunting and everything, and Slade had contacted me right when it happened. And of course, I didn't know you. I didn't know. I'd heard your name, you know, and everything. And then Slade shared it with me because he knows where I'm at. A while later, then he said, "Look," he said, "I want to give Brian your number. He needs some help on some chainsaws." And he said, He wanted me to be able to talk to you and be able to share back and forth. And so that's what we've done today. I come out here to run saws, but I also come out here to share, because it's important for each person to share to where you don't feel like you're out there swimming alone. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But there's nothing that anybody could do, say, or nothing that could. It's just one of those things where when something like that happens, you don't have to say. You just got to let them know that you're there,
Right.
and that you're thinking about them, and everything. And I'm not doing this to dig anything up. It's just a fact of where what we said a while ago is anybody could be in this same situation that Walker ended up in at any given time.
Well, I can tell you, here's the side of it that's what keeps us floating is just the knowledge of Walker's faith. The fact that I know where Walker's at. I don't have to wonder. I know exactly where Walker's at. He's in heaven with Christ right now, and I know that. There's no question. And I also know that because of what happened to Walker and because of our willingness to do things like this, I've lobbied in D.C., I've lobbied in Mississippi for legislation. We've gone to I don't know how many churches, schools, you fill in the blank. We've done all of it and telling this story. And through that, I can't tell you how many people have been, I don't know, only God knows who was saved or who found an avenue to get out of it and who found us to be able to help them through it, families. We started a thing with a podcast and group and an educational group out of Texas called Next Talk. It's called Walker's Promise, where parents go on there and they say, look, I promise that they sign a petition basically that says we're going to keep our kids safe by not allowing them to take their phones into their bedrooms at night. Phones come into our bedroom at night. They make that promise. That's going to save some kids. And so some family out there is not going to have to contend with what we have had to contend with because of the work that's been done. And that's not because of us. It's not because we're good people. That's the mission that God has given us to carry out. And I wouldn't have chose it voluntarily. There's no way. If you asked me today, it sounds selfish, but I would take Walker back every time.
I coached for years around young kids and everything, and you got coaches and teachers and mentors and everything. Every one of us are around young people all the time, and that's something that didn't necessarily have to be your family member or anything like that. Be sure if you're around somebody like that, you share that with them, those of y'all who are watching this right now, and tell them, say, hey, look, if this ever happens, don't feel like it's the end of the world. You're still gonna, no matter what you do on this planet or whatever, we're still gonna love you.
We're gonna love you.
We're gonna love you. And it's not at the end, Walker seen it as that was it, whatever. But man, I don't know. Is there, you want to add anything else to kind of watch out for as far as like?
Yeah, it's a bunch of things, man, because there's so many. Obviously, this is one thing, and there's so many, social media traps now that are out there, and I think personally, there's a lot of things that, like, telling kids, look, don't communicate with anybody online that you don't personally know.
Yeah.
If you've never shaken their hand or looked them in the eyes and actually physically know they're a person, don't communicate with them. Don't talk to them. And parents should be monitoring that. There's a long list of things, but what I would mostly encourage is communication between parents and kids. We talked about a lot of things, Walker and I did. We didn't ever talk about this. Well, anybody that's hearing this today and you're a parent, you've heard it. And now you've got a responsibility. And that responsibility is now to have a conversation with your kid. Because if I'd have done it, Walker would be here. I always wanted that, the mindset around having conversations like this were the things that I always thought it'd be about the things that I love. I love farm. I love outdoors. I love hunting. I love land. I love, archery. Those are the things I love, and those are fun things. I can sit here and talk for 3 hours about that, and we'd have a big time about it. But this is, like I said, this is the mission that God's put at our feet, and I'm not gonna fail at it.
Well, I wanted to give you the platform to be able to talk about it, because there's so much stuff out there, and the crazy thing too, I want to kind of go back on again, is this wasn't something that went on over several days, weeks, months, or even a year. This happened at night, and then just a matter of a few hours, all this took place. I appreciate your willingness to be able to share it and everything, and so if something happens, somebody watching this knows somebody, just be sure to tell them to reach out to somebody. Don't, everything's gonna be fine. Everything.
The only other thing I would add, I've had parents contact me. I'm on just my name on Facebook. We've got Walker's Mission. It's got Instagram, Facebook. Anything we're doing is posted out there. Follow us on those things. And but the main thing is, if you need help, man, if you can't find nobody else, you can't be embarrassed in front of me.
Yeah, and I mean, because heck, y'all out here, it ain't like you wasn't in a neighborhood, nothing. Know your nearest neighbors. Not close at all.
I tell people all the time, that we thought we were defending against everything problematic this world had, to throw at us, and here we are. And that's even more confidence to me that it's hard for me to think about it in this way, and I hope God explains it to me one day. But to see that how God has used this, I mean, it just cannot be just it happened to us by some random chance. And God's got a plan in this, and we're gonna follow it through.
Y'all just be sure and watch out for one another, especially the young people, because there's so much stuff out there around every corner, and then there's so many people out there trying to get other people. If this don't reach but one person, that's fine.
That's fine.
You know what I mean?
That's fine. That's
the one
that's our
person.
motto. If we can help one person.
One person. And I guarantee you there's somebody watch this right here that's been in that same situation, and there's going to be people who watch this, they were just terrified to share anything with anybody because it's embarrassing, and everything, very embarrassing. But if you can just pray God's will be done on Brian and his family, and to wrap his arms around them and to comfort them the best that they can be comfort, and the people outside, extended family and friends and stuff like that, that's the best thing you can do. So this video is not monetized, never will be monetized. And I've posted well over 3,000 videos. I'm not sure what the count is now, but quite a few. And I've never had trouble coming up with a title on a video. I usually already have a title name before I film the video. And I told Brian there yesterday when I was about to leave, I said, I'm at a loss. I said, I have no idea how to title this thing. And after thinking about it, got home last night and just running it through my mind, this is the title that I came up with, what y'all seen. So be sure and share this video around. I think most anybody needs to hear Brian's story, the family story of what all went on. And please watch after the youngins, and with phones and access to the internet or anything like that. And make sure you talk, ask questions. And the biggest thing is make sure that no matter what, somebody's going to love them and everything's going to be okay. So appreciate y'all watching. Thank y'all for sticking in. If you stuck in this long, we'll catch y'all later. Later, taters.